and time again, we are questioned on integrity and misconduct at our places of work. Join us today as we'll be discussing on employee integrity as well as our behavior at our workplaces. I'm your host, Janice Munyai. Our guest is already on set with us today. Her name is Madam Grace Mundu. She is the General Manager, Sales at CIC Insurance. She is a family lady and an elder right here at Deliverance Church in Bakassi. Madam Grace, thank you so much for joining us today. It is an honor to have you. So maybe you would start by saying hi to our viewers.
Hello, viewers.
And how are you doing?
I am doing well.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much for choosing to do this with us today. And as stated earlier, we'll be looking at integrity at our workplaces. But then before we get to our workplace, there are steps that one takes. At times there are people who take interviews, there are others who begin their own businesses, so that is their workplace. So in a case whereby one has to take an interview, first of all, would you please give us tips on tips to interviewee on how to carry themselves out when they're going out for an interview?
Thank you.
Yeah.
An interview is the best place to show yourself and to prove your work ethics to your prospecting employer.
Yeah.
You get invited to an interview because you made an application.
Yes.
There is always the cover letter, which you summarize about yourself, your capabilities, and if you're given a chance, what you'll be able to do. While you are coming for an interview, you must be ready and be able to remember the things that you brought out in your application that you'll be able to do. And that will be the beginning point. Once you get into the interview room, you need to go for an interview when you are well-dressed.
Yes.
Professionally well-dressed. You must have learned about this organization. You must have learned about the dress code. You get into an interview presentable as per that organization.
Okay.
Get to learn more details, especially for the youth. The government has been taking so many interviews on internships. You need to learn about that department where you've been called, or learn about what the government is doing, so that the interview, if it's based on what is the government doing, then you can be able to articulate that. Yeah. So the most important thing in an interview is the professionalism, work ethics that you bring out during the interview. Go not tensed. It's just people talking like just the way we are talking. Yeah. People just want to know you. So don't go with when you are tensed and you get to forget everything you are asked about. The other thing you need to do in an interview is be very honest. Be honest with yourself. Yeah. Do not say things that will blow you out with even more questions that you may be unable now to move from where you are. Okay. So you need to go when you know exactly yourself and you are honest with yourself. Should you be asked a question that you have no answer, just be honest. Tell the employer that that one I don't know. But then tell the employer, I am willing to learn. Given a chance, I am willing to learn about it. Then you must be in the interview place before time. If you are invited for an interview at 8, don't arrive at 8. Yeah. Arrive before. Because sometimes the rooms could change and all that. So that if there are any changes, then the time of the interview is not inconvenienced by you are coming late.
Yeah, and you're trying to figure out what room has it been moved to and such stuff.
Exactly.
That is quite amazing. But then you see, when someone is preparing themselves, they might not really know what it is that the employer is looking at. So from an employer's point of view, what is the one thing or what is going through the mind of an employer once an interviewee walks into the interview room?
The things employers are looking for from an employee, to start with is one with integrity, work ethics. Yeah. And when we are talking about work ethics, we are talking of rules or values that an employer wants to instill in their leaders and in their employees. Yeah. the employer is looking for an employee who buys into their vision and into their mission and into their core values.
Yeah.
So while you are going for an interview, you must have known exactly who the employer is, because those are the kind of things the employer will be looking out from you. They want to see how will you be able to handle our organization out there to the market, to the customers, to the fellow staffs. How do you cooperate with others? Are you a team player, or are you just to yourself? Are you individualistic? Are you one person who will give you a letter that says your work begins from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Yes. Then you come at 8. And then throughout you are looking at your watch. You are looking at 1 o'clock, you are looking at 5 o'clock so that you can touch up. So throughout the interview, the employer will be engaging, will be asking questions from you that lead towards that. To exactly to understand how will you behave in such and such a situation.
Okay.
Yes.
So we have different times where we have rumors going round on, for me to get this job, I need to dress up like this, or the employer is looking at their perceptions, which are wrong, concerning what an employer is going to be looking for in an employee. So what would be your advice to people who think that they need to dress in a certain way for them to get a particular job? You know, like for the ladies, they tend to like lower the button a little bit lower, like have their cleavage out for them to get this job. What would be your advice to anyone who thinks that if I have my hair done this way or my nails done this way, then that is going to be a win for me, I'm getting this job? What would be your advice?
As I said before,
yeah,
dress professionally for the kind of organization you are going for the interview for. If you are going for an interview for, there are different types of jobs.
Yeah.
For example, you are going for an interview where you are needed to work in a salon, where you are needed to work in this spa, in a spa.
Spas.
They would expect you to come with your, with your booms almost like out.
Yeah.
You come scantily dressed, and because the environment is that kind of a thing.
Okay.
If you are applying for a job in a official place, in a government working place, in a corporate organization, that will not sell. That will definitely not sell. There are work ethics, and there are things that corporates take very seriously, like sexual harassment in work and compliance, matters compliance. If you present yourself dressed in a way that the employer sees here will have a problem with complying with the work ethics at workplace, then you disqualify yourself. You really don't have to go out to seduce your potential employer into employing you. For me, seducing and the interview panel with your dressing, I would say it is almost tantamount to seducing them almost with money. It's like you are bribing your way out, which you really don't have to. I say the best thing is be yourself. And who are you? What values do you have yourself? Because I said again, in the interview, throughout, the questions will be wanting to know who you are and what values do you carry.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'd like to flip the coin a little bit to the other side, because in a panel where an interview is being taken, we have one side of the interviewer and then there's the other side of the interviewee. Now, from the employer's side of, from the employer's point of view, we do have employers who will ask for favors in order for them to give you a job. What would be your advice to, like, maybe young men or young women who have found themselves in such a situation where the employer is telling them, that you have this job, but we have to maybe take a holiday, maybe we have to take coffee in the evening and such stuff, because we do have such cases.
I think I need to correct that.
Okay.
There is no employer who has that kind of a thing in their code of conduct.
Okay.
We need to separate employer from employees.
Okay.
my employer, I have a work ethics and code of conduct of how to conduct myself out there, and even to the customers and to fellow staff and all that.
Yes.
I, as Grace, can decide to be a bad person, to have no morals, to ask for favors. I will not ask for favors in an interview. Things to do with the favors, it's really not the corporation, it's not the organization that asks for those favors. It is individuals. Now, one needs to be careful when you are going for an interview in a panel of with a panelists. It's again different if the interview is a one-man show. If it is my own business, I want to employ you, and I want to have some favors from you. Then again, you know, that's not an interview. That's not the formal interview we are talking about. Because I can even call you into my office. I come, we talk. I tell you, okay, if I am an immoral person, I tell you, this is what I want. These are my demands. I can give you the job, but you have to meet 1, 2, 3. Those are not the formal interviews we are talking about. The formal interviews we are talking about, you cannot compromise integrity, your integrity in a panel of interviews. Regardless of what people have told you, regardless of whether there is someone in the organization who has told you, I will push your case through. That person may not even be in the panel. Okay? And even if that person is in the panel, you could behave in a way that the others ask questions. So really, those kind of things do not come out or show out at the interview level. They show themselves out later after.
On.
Yes.
So really, it is not a problem with the organization.
It is not the organization. Individual. Yes.
Yeah, you have defended them today.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of say out with, don't you dare go to this office. They are going to make you go through this. But really, we are learning that it is
not the organization.
It's an individual.
It is an individual in the organization
who has a problem with morality.
Exactly.
That is an eye-opener. So before you believe in everything that you hear about organizations or even have a perception towards a certain company, you need to listen to this. Allow us to take a very short break, then we'll be right back. Now that you have found out on how to best get yourself or how to secure yourself a position in a workplace, how do you carry yourself out in the same workplace? Welcome back as we handle how to behave in an office. So now, Madam Grace, we have already had an interviewee come on board. The employer is glad to have them. What are some of the tips on how to behave in an office?
Thank you.
Yes.
Now, when you get into a new office, now you've gotten a job, the first thing is you learn to say hello to your colleagues.
Yes.
You'll be the one who is new. They are looking at you. Depending on how you present yourself, they could welcome you with a whole heart. They could distance themselves from you, in which case you suffer, because you really need to learn from them. So the first thing is once you've been shown this is where you sit, this is your department, these are your colleagues, get to know them. Don't show yourself like you are so new and naive, you know nothing, because then the work which has not been moving, your old colleagues may offload it to you, and you'll start being an unperformer from the word go. Show confidence in yourself, and that you understand this is the work I've come to do, and this is how to go about it. Now, in the workplace, people who show high standards of work ethics, they do a lot of justice to their career progression.
Okay.
What do I mean by this? Showing some initiative in the work.
Yeah.
Janice, if you have been told do this work, and it's like filing, you've been given just do filing.
Okay.
File for me these documents.
Yeah.
Then you file the documents, and after you have done with the documents, you keep them aside, you get your phone, and you start looking at your phone.
Yeah.
You will not go far. Show initiative in your work. As in, we have been given this kind of work, do it, finish. After you finish, say, I am done with what you gave me. What else can I do?
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Don't be a person who is, when you are given a task, you do it, and after that, you just wake up to do your own things. You only grow in workplace if you show some initiative towards it. Even if the work doesn't lie to you and you have time to learn about it, just learn it from your colleagues. What about this one? How do you go about it? That in that way, you grow and you become an all-round person in an organization. Those are some of the things you do.
So you need to show interest in what you're doing.
Yes.
And you show that you have an initiative. You're not waiting to be pushed.
Exactly.
You are someone that knows what they are doing,
Yes.
and you are willing to even learn more. And I
Yes.
do realize that it's not only in a workplace where, in an office where we have people working in. It could be in a business that you have just joined in or anything of that sort. That is something that you could apply. Now, okay, you
Yes.
wanted to say something?
Yes,
Okay.
I wanted to say this.
Yes.
In every organization, just like in every home,
Yeah.
there are politics. There's what we call politics at work.
Yeah.
And not just at work, even at home you have politics.
Yeah.
One thing you should avoid so much as an employee is to come and you find people embroiled in a politics and you jump in. Being the new person, you'll be the victim.
Okay.
Just learn the organization with calmness.
Okay.
And try to play where you should. For example, if you join an organization and you find the person who is training you work, they don't get along with the boss.
Yes.
And this person is forever telling you, forget about her. Anyway, she doesn't know anything. She just climbed the ladder through, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
You shouldn't listen to those kind of things.
Okay.
Just do your work. Be able to tell this colleague, let's forget about her. Just as you have said, and we not discuss the people, can we discuss the work?
Okay.
Let it be the work. And Janice, for every work you are given,
Yes.
do it as though you are doing to the Lord.
Yeah.
Colossians chapter 3, from verse 23. Do it with all your mighty, as though you are doing it to the Lord, because you will get a reward. First, you get a reward here on earth, because you'll get a salary. Remember, you went there to work, and there's a pay.
Yes.
So do it with all your mighty. There's a reward, there's a salary at the end of the month. And beyond the salary, there's a God in heaven
Yes.
who will reward you for that.
Yeah.
And if you continue reading that book, it continues to say, for those who do not, they will be punished. So again, when you are punished by the employer, when you are punished at work, it is even biblical.
Yeah.
If you don't do, you get what you deserve. So as you go to that office, I always tell people, go with one mind. Do to others what you would want them to do to yourself.
Yeah.
As you do that work, as you execute those duties, do to others what you would want them to do to yourself. If this is the way I would like myself to be treated,
Yes.
then that's how I should treat you. And that it should be the same at workplace.
So the one thing that people should be very careful to check out in a workplace is to focus on the work and not
Yes.
individuals.
Not the people.
Because at times you find people in certain situations where they cannot explain how they got there in the first place. It's because they focused on the individuals
Yes.
instead of what brought them there.
Exactly.
That is quite an eye-opener. Looking at, now you have settled into the office. You are used to, not used to, you have gelled well with your fellow employees and all that. But then you realize that with time, there comes out familiarity in between colleagues. And this has led to some things such as cheating in the office. I do understand that there are workplace spouses, whereby it's like everybody in the office knows that this is a couple. It might be a married man or a married lady or a lady who's engaged, but then since they spend so much time in the workplace, I think they tend to forget who they really are. What would be your advice on people who just get too familiar into the office place, and then with time things are happening and they find themselves in such great messes and homes are breaking or engagements are breaking, and it's just because someone got too familiar in the office?
Yeah. What you're saying, it happens. In some places it happens. And these things happen when people forget about who they are.
Yeah.
I always say that, Janice, you are the person who should be the supervisor of your integrity and your conscience. What do you want in this life? Because the workplace is just like church, where we meet. It's just like in a chama where we meet.
Yeah.
It's just like in any other social place we have been put together. It doesn't mean like now that we are working together and I'm away from my family, then I am free to throw away every conscience in me out of the window and do anything I want. One, I said every organization have their code of conduct.
Yes.
And in that code of conduct and in their HR manual, they will lay out the consequences of all these relationships. So even as you get into a place, you are a new person and all that, be able to understand your HR manual because it is given to every staff who joins the organization.
Okay.
Read the HR manual and find out, are you breaking the HR manual?
Okay.
That is the first thing. Secondly, as a young person, now let imagine we are talking about young people who have just been employed.
Yes.
As a young person, you've been employed, a young girl like yourself.
Yeah.
What do you want in this life?
Okay.
To move around with every other man and you say yes, 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 sir, to everybody who says so? Then what about tomorrow? Because it is all about me. What do I want in this life? Nobody will come to supervise you. I'll tell you, your father will not come to work with you at workplace to say, I don't want you looking at that guy the way you did. In any case, remember, your father will not marry you. Your father has left you free now. It is upon you to work out your, to work out your salvation with fear and trembling.
Yes.
Okay. Now this time, to work out your life. Because you may tell me the salvation I'm talking about, you don't know about it.
Yeah.
It is upon you to work out your life with fear and trembling.
Yeah.
Because there are consequences. For every decision you make, there are consequences. You shouldn't be one who just jumps in. And as you said, there are offices who do not allow couples.
Yeah.
So if the two of us start relating and we become like a couple, the office would require one of us to resign.
Yeah.
So who resigns? So before you get into those kind of engagements, you really need to learn all that. Who will resign between me, if I am the lady?
Is
it
the
me?
cost.
You count the cost.
Yeah.
And you'll find in most cases, and I've seen it work, in most cases it's the ladies who end up resigning.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, there are a few men who will look for a job and leave you, but a few. In most cases, it's the lady who ends up resigning. So, before you get into those kind of relationship, understand the HR manual. Does it allow both of you to continue being there? If it doesn't, one of you must leave. Who will leave? So, make sure you know all the consequences of your decisions.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm looking at consequences coming out of the choices that you make.
Exactly.
And that is quite a good advice because I'm trying to think through counting the cost, first of all. I need to know how ready I am as a young person to take the consequences, like how am I going to deal with whatever outcome is going to come in. So it is very important to count the cost, and after all, it's your workplace and your life. You have a life, you have a workplace.
Yes.
Then we should not let our workplaces mess up our lives.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I'm looking at if I end up resigning out of a workplace because of a relationship, then my livelihood has been messed up with. That's a choice, that's a consequence
Exactly.
to a choice that I did make. Now, earlier you did mention office politics. And in most of the times, office politics do not end up well. There are times whereby we have had corruption scandals coming out to people that we thought are innocent. And maybe would give us red flags or things we need to, things that we see and we know that we are trending down a corrupt lane.
Janice, that's a big topic
Yes.
about corruption.
Mm-hmm.
Corruption, okay, it may not really be on the office politics, but when we talk of scandals
Yeah.
in workplace, the scandal could be individual or institutional.
Yes.
In that I could do something that will scandalize me as a person, or I could do something that will scandalize the institution.
Yeah.
And of course, a scandal is anything that brings in disgrace, either to the individual or to the organization. The way to ensure you don't find yourself in those kind of situations, again,
Yes.
I'll say it is maintaining high standards of work ethics. There are those issues, the scandals that will bring disgrace to the office and may not touch on to your customers. For example, like we said, the office relationships.
Yeah.
If, for example, you find yourself being the HR manager and you look for favors from the staff,
Yeah.
whichever, if you are an HR manager, a male, you look for favors from the ladies.
Yeah.
If the other way, the opposite is also true.
Yeah,
You do the same. That is a scandal that would disgrace you yourself as an individual as well as the organization,
Yeah.
which should be avoided at all costs. Because, again, as I said, there are consequences. There are those which will be punished through the HR.
Yes.
And there are those which could even make you go to court. Again, count the cost of the litigation costs and all that. In all these things,
Yes.
if you find yourself in those scandals, there are quite consequences for that. And before you find yourself in that, the question you ask yourself is, are you ready for them? Are you ready? Are you ready for the consequences that come out of the decisions you make? And the scandals begin from the heart.
Yes.
Every scandal begins from the heart. For me to be involved in a malpractice at workplace, it started from the heart. Probably maybe I want to grow or to become rich so quickly, beyond what my salaries can afford. Then I look for ways of the processes I can manipulate at workplace.
Yes.
Remember, if I am caught, depending on what the HR manual says, I could be given a summarily dismissal. I could be taken to court. I could be forced to pay back, all the things that I have done and all that. So it's really from your heart. And as I said, work out your life
Yes.
with fear and trembling because there are consequences.
Yeah.
And you'll have to pay for it. So those are the kind of things you need to find out. Before you find yourself in a scandal, it begins from your heart.
Yeah.
What is your heart telling you?
Uh-huh.
So I would advise the young people to have a contented heart. What I mean by a contented heart, not that you don't aspire, you don't have ambitions, you don't have, that's not what I mean.
Okay.
I mean, be contented with what you have to grow it to what you want to be. What I have, to grow it to what I want it to be. Not for me to go out of the way to acquire what I aspire to be in the wrong way. Because whatever you do, it will come back to haunt you. Well, I think in our media this week, Janice, we saw some old people being imprisoned for 37 years for things they committed some years back, 2004. We need to take care of that. How do you want to spend your later years in life?
Yes.
As a young person, you do something today, do you want it to come to haunt you when you are very weak, when you are at that age? Let us be careful at all times. The things we do, they have consequences. Regardless of how long it takes, they have consequences to us. So let's be careful about that.
Because the Bible actually tells us that out of the abundance of the heart,
Yes.
like so much trouble flows out from the heart. So we
Yes.
need to guard our hearts.
Yeah.
That has been an amazing, amazing session. But before we close or wrap up, I'd like you to look into that camera and give an advice to people, young people, or even older people on integrity in their workplaces. A closing close as we finish.
Yes. Your integrity, it is all begins from your heart. And as I said, Matthew 7:12, do to others what you would want them to do to yourself. The work you are doing today, would you want somebody to do the same to you? What you do to your neighbor, what you do to your son, what you do to your children, what you do to your employer, what you do to your employee. Is it the same thing that you would want them to do to you? If you are guided by that golden rule, then we will find all of us being co-workers with God and working for God and not for man. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again for joining us and choosing to do this with us today. It has been quite educative. That has been our session for today. Thank you so much for tuning in to the end. And remember to follow us on Facebook at Dhamana Talk Show, on YouTube at Dhamana Talk Show, on Twitter and Instagram is Dhamana Talks. I was your host, Janice Munyai. Thank you so much.